we have to know each subordinate in person. We have to find out what the best competences they have, and we have to find a way where to place every person in the system or in the organization to use his competences.
Shaping the future of the Alliance, this is the Transformation Brief, and I'm your host, Jackie Faye Burton. Here at Allied Command Transformation, we turn ideas into capabilities that help the future warfighter. But transformation is not just about tech, it is about people, and especially enlisted personnel and non-commissioned officers, or NCOs, who make up the backbone of our militaries. And who better to talk about that than Allied Command Transformation Command Senior Enlisted Leader, Sergeant Major Remigijus Katinas. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Really thanks for inviting me to be your guest. And as you mentioned, ACT is about turning the ideas to the capabilities. But guess what? Who brings the best ideas? Of course, the people, they bring the ideas. So some countries, they have the 4 domains. They can operate in 4 domains, in 5 domains. Still, if you have a 3, you are good, but no domain can survive without the people.
Yeah, this topic really excited me because I've worked with so many great enlisted people across my years of my career. And, you know, some of the enlisted people that I worked with actually had opportunities to become officers, and they said, no, I want to stay on the enlisted side because I want to be close to the work. So, you know, what exactly is the difference when it comes to an officer and an enlisted person?
I would say always we look for the difference, but sometimes we need to look what is the similar. But all in all, there is not really one category is more important than another one. But what they have a common, what they have the similar, they have the common mission to accomplish. And it means for the long time it stays like officers, they always were and are as decision makers, and the NCOs are executors of that. But and probably it's the best model in the NATO countries and in the NATO military. But at the same time, if we look to the little bit to the Ukraine, to the war in Ukraine, we can realize that now even the enlisted, they have to make the fast decisions because it's about they are between to survive or to be killed. Yeah. And now even enlisted, they have to be fast making decisions in order to stay alive.
Yeah, and a lot of times the enlisted personnel have a lot more of practical experience than the officers do. They're the ones that are often, you know, closest to the work day in and day out.
That's true, actually. They are executors. They are first responders to the, even if we are taking not the wartime, but the peacetime in the exercises. So they perfectly know what works better and what works on what doesn't. So
exactly. And okay, so before we go too far down that path, I do want to talk about you a little bit because you have such an interesting background. You are from Lithuania, and you were actually born in Lithuania when it was still under Soviet control. And for our listeners that may not know at home, Lithuania was actually the first Soviet republic to declare independence in March of 1990. You enlisted in the military in 1993, saw that transition firsthand. You know, so compared to a lot of people in this building and across the Alliance, if anyone understands the threats from the East, it's you.
That's true, and I believe it was a really big historical moment for my country. Not only for my country, but all the countries that were former Soviet Union countries. But what I would like to mention, what I learned from that time actually, that not always the tanks and the mass is winning the fight or the battle. Sometimes it's about people will to fight. You can take the lives from the people, but you cannot take the will to fight for the freedom. And now it's everything about the people.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, in preparation for this podcast, you know, we had talked about the historic moment, the Baltic Way, you know, the famous human chain that ran across all 3 Baltic states in 1989. And you were there, you know, and I don't think a lot of people, you know, from other countries, you know, learned about this. I certainly didn't learn about this in history class when I was a little girl, but 2 million people participated and made a human chain across 3 countries. Absolutely incredible. What was it like to be there in that moment?
I have to be honest, I was nothing special for this huge historical moment, but I believe every Lithuanian was somehow and somewhere involved to this Baltic chain or the freedom chain. And even more, at that time it was the huge historical moment for the 3 Baltic countries. I mean, again, what is for me, when I look back now from this perspective, so that at that time there was no social media, no messengers, no WhatsApp, no Signal, but as you mentioned, 2 million people, they were exactly at time and at the position where they needed to be, and with the one mission to execute it.
Mm-hmm. And I did love what you said earlier. You can't take away the will of the people, and that's, I'm such a advocate for education. I think that our brains are, our strongest weapon, and I can't agree with you more. But it is incredible, to think that there were no cell phones during that time, and everyone still knew where to go and what time to be there. But enough about the past. Coming forward to today. But, how has being a Lithuanian made you think when it comes to readiness and deterrence for NATO?
Okay, when I speak from my side as being the NCO and about the enlisted and NCOs, what it means for me, the readiness and the deterrence, I have to be ready. I mean, everyone from us, or every military, or even civilian in the NATO structure, they have the role, what they have to accomplish, and typically it's described in the job description. If someone wakes me up in the middle of the night and he tells me that I have to act or I have to perform, it means I have to be ready. To say that I need additional 1 week or 2 weeks to be ready, it's not really the case. So, and by being ready, I'm sending the message to our enemies that I'm deterring it. And the same goes on the big scale in the NATO. When we have good plans, a clear mission to accomplish, when we have well-educated, trained, and equipped troops, we are sending the message to our enemy that we are ready and we are deterring them.
Okay, and so here at Allied Command Transformation, where we do turn ideas into capabilities, why are enlisted personnel and NCOs so important?
It's obvious because when we speak about the transformation, it's everything about changing, first of all, the mindset of the people, so that we need to bring some new ideas and to be initiative. And that's very important from our perspective, from the ACT perspective, that how we are involving our youngsters to this big process, huge process. And as soon as we set the clear goals, clear mission for them, and as soon as they see their role in these big changes, so they are bringing immediately the initiative to this transformation, and they demonstrate the ownership of the big changes.
Okay, and so, it doesn't matter exactly what level you're at. Everyone needs to have some initiative to make this organization successful. But you mentioned earlier that we have learned some lessons from Ukraine. What can you expand on that? What exactly were you talking about?
I mean, in the broad understanding, when we speak only about the enlisted and the NCOs, so the biggest inventions happened in the trenches, and later it became the capability. I mean, it doesn't matter what the rank or the position you take or you hold in the wartime. You have to be able to create the conditions for these guys to bring the best ideas, because they're facing the complex problems in the first lines, and they do not have a time to wait until some kind of the new proposal or new idea is showing up. Everything goes from the bottom up. And that's why it's very important to learn this lesson. And when we speak about what we can do better in the NATO, I believe that we can be more flexible by managing our people or the talents. Not only the ranks, not only the positions or promotions, but to manage the talents. And what I mean, that we have to know each subordinate in person. We have to find out what the best competences they have, and we have to find a way where to place every person in the system or in the organization to use his competencies.
Yeah, everyone brings something to the table. You just kind of have to pull it out of them and you know, realize where their talents are and where they can best be used. But you know, you said that in Ukraine, a lot of the things are being learned in the trenches, but some of that has to do with technology. You know, so when we talk about technology, how is that changing what enlisted personnel need to know and have to do today?
Beside that they have to be more sophisticated, I would say, the personnel, but like one of the example that I'm telling every time when I meet with the people, so that for many years when we spoke about when we were speaking about the leaders, always it was about leading the people. So what is new now, that you have to be able not only to lead the people, but also to lead the machines, robots, technology. So I mean that maybe your subordinate is not anymore the human, but you cannot transfer or delegate your responsibility to the machine. Still, in the end of the day, you hold this whole responsibility, and you have to face with the complex challenges, and at the same time you have to solve some kind of the problems that are ethical, or it's really hard to find the real answer, what is right, what is wrong. That's why it's really important to still educate our youngsters, our enlisted NCOs, what is right, what is wrong.
Yeah, it's not a black and white world always. You know, a lot of gray zones. But you know, wrapping it up, if you could give one piece of advice to a young enlisted person in the Alliance, what would that be?
Using the opportunity, I would like to share my advice not only with the youngsters, but first of all to address the NCOs who already have the really great experience in the shoes, and that doesn't matter what the rank and position you take, doesn't matter whom you sit next actually to 1 star or 4 stars. Still we have to be connected to the people, to the forces, because it's our obligation and it's our privilege at the same time. And for the youngsters, the message is very clear. So everyone has his role in the NATO or in the Alliance defense plan. So it means, again, I repeat maybe myself, we have to be ready for that, and to be ready to bring your ideas, to be innovative, to find the new ways how to solve some kind of the problems. You have to learn, you have to watch, you have to read, you have to exercise, you have to update yourself as same fast as you're updating your private cell phone. So you have to keep the information, what is the newest, and you have to be ready to commit, and it's not about tomorrow or day after tomorrow. We need you now, we need you today.
All right, very well said. We need you today. Thank you so much for the insight. And as NATO continues to transform, it is clear it's not always just about developing capabilities, it's also about the people. That's all for this episode of the Transformation Brief. Thanks for listening.